I understand it to say that I won't qualify unless something happens to me during a military operation, comma, on a peacekeeping mission, comma, as a result of a terrorist act, or in any armed conflict. Okay, so God forbid a terrorist act occurs and I'm affected, killed. Does that meet the qualifications even if I was just a participant or a victim of a terrorist act? Do I now qualify for the 2 checkboxes that my extended family would qualify in? I'm just trying to make sure I understand exactly the checkboxes here. I think the language does not say that, but I want to make sure that it doesn't say that.
Mr. Chairman, Delegate Greason, no, it does not. If you were called up on National Guard duty and you were killed or 90% disabled as a result of that, of your reactivation of duty, then you and your dependents and spouse would be covered. So it is, if you, while on active duty under any circumstances, become 90% or greater disabled, then you do now qualify. Right now, it's only for combat-related 90% or greater or killed in action.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's clear to me now reading line 18 why that does not qualify me, so thank you. And I do support the measure solely and completely, but I just want to make sure I understand it. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, I have
Delegate King.
a motion.
Wait, let's before you, is anybody in the audience who wants to speak in favor of this bill?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, well, quickly,
Okay.
please.
Good morning. My name is Bob Sembeck from the JLC. I'd like to read a short statement, or if we don't have time available, if the statement can be put into the record, we can do it that way.
How short is your statement?
It's about 3 paragraphs.
Okay, let's go ahead. Yes, we'd love to hear from the Joint Leadership Committee, so please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll read this from my cell phone, so it'll go quickly. Yes, so
Are these your remarks or are these adopted
remarks provided by Mr. Bill Ashton, who's our representative for this of this bill? He couldn't be here this morning, so he sent us a statement to read to the committee.
Thank you.
Very short statement. If I read too fast, please stop me. The GLC supports House Bill 2357. This has been an approved agenda item for the past 3 years by the JLC. What this bill would do is to expand the eligibility of the Virginia Military Survivor and Dependent Education Program to service members, and this is important, who in the line of duty incurred an injury and were rated as a result of that injury at 90% by the Veterans Administration. Where and when it happens, this injury happens should not matter and should not make a difference. Under the current law, the spouse or child would be eligible for the benefits only if the veteran's disability was incurred during military operations against terrorism, on a peacekeeping mission or as a result of terrorist act or in any armed conflict. The bill also requires the Department of Veterans Services to define an armed conflict pursuant to this regulation. So a service member injured in line of duty while on a training mission stateside and rated at 90% disability would not be eligible, or someone who was injured in line of war during a Cold War type environment would not be eligible. Last part of the statement, our current governor and previous one have both stated that we want the Commonwealth to be the most friendly state in America. We appreciate your consideration of this. Thank you for this opportunity to address this issue. We also thank Delegate Torrens, standing with us here, for sponsoring this bill, and to Delegates Bill and Phil Corn for being patrons of this bill. End of statement from Mr. Bill Ashton and the GLC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We believe Virginia is the most veteran-friendly state, and we intend to keep it that way.
We appreciate your effort.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all, JLCs. Anybody else like to speak in favor of this bill? Yeah, there's somebody hiding behind the comment. You want to speak in opposition to the bill? Oh, that's your LA. All right. So, yeah, Delegate King.
I'd like to move this fine bill and report this straight. Right? We're not going to approach, just report. I'd like to move the report this bill.
All right, we need to report the bill as amended, please.
As amended.
Thank you. So there's a motion to report House Bill 2357 as amended. It's been properly seconded. Everybody in favor of that motion will say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is reported unanimously, and it will be up in. You don't need to come, Luke. It'll be up in full at 8:30, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Delegate Lane.
And no,
Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Greasy.
Before the patron leaves, since your LA is here, is it possible, Luke, could you get a co-patron form for some of us to sign on to that bill? That would be really helpful. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The last bill on our agenda, Madam Clerk, as I see, is my bill 2171. Are you in agreement with that? Delegate Greason, may I turn the chairmanship over to you briefly while I present my bill?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. The subcommittee will give their attention to House Bill 2171. Delegate Massey, I believe there is a substitute. If I could have a motion to move the substitute? Is there a second? All right, all those in favor of moving the substitute say aye. All right, the House Bill 2171, amendment in the nature of substitute, is now properly before us. Delegate Massey.
Thank you, Delegate Greason. This bill is really a transparency bill as a result of, just some of the instances you've been reading about over the last few months. What we're trying to do, originally, the reason we have a substitute are two reasons. Originally, we had the bill in the 6-year plan part of the code. And the 6-year plan is really a looking forward. We have our institutions by July 1st of every 2 years have to submit a new plan, a new 6-year plan. They have to amend or update that plan every year. And it's a document that we use on the OP6 to sort of plan our funding for those 6-year universities. What this bill is really looking backwards instead of looking forwards. And so we're trying to get information from them, transparency information about investment funds, the return on those funds, and how those returns, those earnings are being used. So it really didn't fit in the first place we had it in the code. So we moved the substitute, moved it from the section that it was in at Ryan's doing, and put it in this section. And what this section does, it's 23.1-1303. If you go back a couple pages, it says governing board's duties. And then it says the governing board of each public institution of higher education shall, and then this is the 11th, shall underneath that. So what this basically says is that the governing boards of each one of our institutions by December 1st shall report the value of the investments as reflected on their balance sheet for those of us in the private sector, statement of net position, as of the prior June 30th. And we don't include endowment privately raised funds. That's never been the intent of our funding higher ed. We ignore what their private fundraising is. We want to know what those investment balances are, any cash earnings on those balances, and what those cash earnings were used for. We exclude the Virginia Commonwealth University Health System. We have two institutions, VCU and UVA, that have large research hospitals and institutions associated with them. In the case of VCU, the VCU Health System over here that I serve on the board of is a separate legal entity. So what we really are focused on are the education institutions, not the hospitals. So we exclude from these reporting requirements the VCU Health System, and then while the UVA Hospital is not a separate legal entity from the university, it functionally operates as a separate entity, so we have functionally excluded any balances associated with them. So it's a transparency bill that all our higher ed institutions must tell us what the value of their investments are on their balance sheet, how much cash earnings those investments yield, and what those earnings were used for. So that's the bill, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Delegate Massey. Any questions of the subcommittee on the substitute?
Mr. Chairman,
Delegate LeMonion.
just so I'm clear, is in line 190, we've got excluding, as Delegate Massey said, any funds derived from endowments, endowment income, private philanthropy. Just so I'm clear, what's left? What are we recording on?
Well, there's there's hundreds of millions of dollars left. So you take the University of Virginia, which I'm familiar with. The University of Virginia has, for instance, when we issue bonds up there, we don't have serial payments of those bonds. We have a bullet payment at the end. Yet they fund a reserve account every year to meet that bullet payment. the University of Virginia did a contract with a food service provider, and I think there was about a $70 million upfront payment for that. That's invested and amortized over the period of time. I mean, there were about, in the Strategic Investment Fund, there were about 9 different accounts like that that they have pulled together. So there are a lot of things. Those are not private endowments. The bond rating agencies, another big one. The bond rating agencies, to preserve the University of Virginia's AAA rating, require that we keep about a year's worth of cash on hand. So that's $300 or $400 million, I remember. So that includes that. So it adds up to about, $1.5 to $2 billion in the case of the University of Virginia.
Just a quick follow-up question.
Delegate LeMonier.
So that, I'm assuming this is true, but the statement of net position is something that's probably already audited?
Yes, the statement of net position is all our university's balance sheet for us in the private sector. They have to have a balance sheet as of June 30th. The Auditor of Public Accounts does a very thorough audit of that. So these are audited numbers by the Auditor of Public Accounts. So it's a balance sheet in the private sector that's a June 30th balance sheet that is audited by our Auditor of Public Accounts.
I appreciate that translation by Mr. Market.
All right. LeMonier, thank you. Other questions of the subcommittee? I have one question, Delegate Massey. In the exceptions, which I totally understand about the health systems and the medical center, if there was to be another institution like that that would come online in the next couple years, would we appropriately crack open the code again and say, and now we will also exempt the George Mason University Innova Health System partnership? Is that your intent, or should we put some language in there that says, or other similar entity as to be created? Your bill, not trying to rewrite it.
Yeah, I would think on that hypothetical, Mr. Chairman, that we would just wait until we, when we see it, we'll deal with it when we see it. But if it fits the model here, instead of trying to be prospective and guess what the hypothetical will look like, I just think probably a wait and be a very quick, addition to this bill. So
sounds good. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak? Anybody in the audience like to speak in favor of the bill? Yes, ma'am. Please identify yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. Laura Fornash, University of Virginia. And this is something that the university committed to this summer as we held meetings with both the House Appropriations Committee and Senate Finance Committee, and the chairman, or the patron of the bill. Delegate Massey is correct. There were 9 different accounts that made up the statement of net position, and so we would envision probably providing a little bit more detail on what is in those balances versus just one figure.
yeah, and so, Mr. Chairman, may I speak to that real quick, please?
You can, and then I'm going to ask a quick question.
For the University of Virginia, on their statement of net position, their balance sheet, Delegate money, they have one number. It's called long-term investments, I think. So that's why I say in here, this is my language, by the way. I define as and sub-accounts thereof. That's Jimmy Massey's language. What we're trying to do is get them to give us some more detail. They lump it all in one number on the balance sheet called long-term investments, but we're going to get them to give us the detail and how that money is used. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Laura, not asking you to speak for the other universities, but obviously UVA might have 9 accounts today. What do the other universities have? Do they have 1, 2, multiple, and are they signed off on this language?
A few universities.
Delegate Reason, I think I can answer
Okay.
that. So I do, as I chair the health system over here, but I'm also familiar with VCUs, and they all have different numbers of accounts. So it's going to vary from institution to institution. This language was, there were 3, William & Mary, the Chief Financial Officer of William & Mary, the Chief Financial Officer at VCU, Chief Financial Officer at JMU, I think, Laura, was that? Anyway, Tech. Yeah, I see Laura, Elizabeth Hoover standing there. So I ran this language by all those Chief Financial Officers, and everybody's happy with it as far as I know.
If there are other representatives from other public universities that would like to raise their hand and say they're in support of this, that would be great. Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in opposition to the bill? All right, back to subcommittee. What's your pleasure on the bill? Move to report the substitute. All right, is there a second? All those in favor of recommending reporting the substitute on House Bill 2171 say aye. All those opposed? All All right, the bill has passed. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Becky, that concludes our docket. So I want to thank all the subcommittee members. As far as I know, that is our entire docket for the 2017 session. The subcommittee on the House side until we get the Senate bills, and we will hear all these bills in full committee in 25 minutes. So thank you very much for all your hard work. Appreciate you being here for this special meeting, and I want to particularly thank again our staff, Becky and Ryan, for yeoman's work. Thank you very much, and with unanimous consent, without objection, I will adjourn the committee. Thank you.